Hey, what's up folks? Hello to another Divi tutorial brought to you by the team at Divi Engine. My name's Roby, and today we're going to be talking about how to change your Divi website's domain name utilizing some simple tools and steps to make something that might seem a little bit scary not so much. Now today's tutorial gets into stuff like DNS records and so forth, so we expect you to know a little bit about these type of things, or at least know what they are, and then we'll guide you through getting to the answers to making sure that you can complete all the steps in today's tutorial. So get ready, strap in, let's get into it. Okay, so now before we get into the more technical stuff, let's talk about a few of the reasons why you might be wanting to change your Divi website's URL. Now, the first thing is that maybe you're pivoting or rebranding your website. Let's say, for example, you were running this awesome travel blog about your travels around the world, but you really found that your niche lied a little bit more towards the food experience that you had while you're traveling, and that your audiences were a lot more responsive to this. So you're figuring, well, maybe if I crank a little bit more of this type of content, then I might be increasing my reader base and my reach with this blog that I'm running. So maybe you want to change yourtravelblog.com to something like yourfoodblog.com. So that would be if you're pivoting or rebranding your site. The same would go for any type of products. Maybe you were selling a wide range of products on your site, but you found that cosmetics is really where you're making most of your money. So you want to expand your cosmetics line and maybe just focus on that. So you might rebrand your website for that very reason, without the need to completely redo your website or redesign it. Now, the other option or other reason why you might want to do this is that you need a shorter URL. Maybe when you got started, the URL that you wanted wasn't available, or maybe, there might be a different reason as far as you were super excited, so you wanted to get all the words in there to convey the message. But in reality, shorter, more memorable URLs travel a lot easier between people. So it's a lot easier for somebody to say, visit Sally's site instead of Sally's site about cooking and cookingproducts.com, for example. I mean, it's a silly one, but you get what I mean here. The last one that we'll cover here is site migration. Now, there might be many reasons why you would, change your domain during a site migration. It's not a very common thing, but sometimes the developers that you hired to build your website, maybe you didn't know anything, they bought the domain for you, they actually retained ownership of that domain, or maybe you're having a hard time getting that domain released from them. So it's just easier sometimes to just move ahead and get a new domain name. This might be one of the reasons. So when you're migrating that site is a good time to do any type of domain changes that you wanted to do in the past. So, I'm just going to keep telling you, read the fine print, folks, in those contracts to avoid these type of scenarios. But yeah, these are some of the reasons, 3 of them, why you might want to be changing your domain name. Now that we've got that under the belt, why don't we get into doing the actual domain name change for your Divi website? Alrighty guys, getting into the actual tutorial. Now, just for reference, we do have our tutorial up on our blog, so definitely browse over to the Divi Engine website at diviengine.com/resources, and you'll see the blog post right there. And in there, we cover text steps for you to follow along with the tutorial, if that's maybe your preferred method of learning, but everything is in there with some screenshots to help you best change your Divi website URL. Now, to get started, we're going to log into the back end of our Divi website and to the WordPress dashboard. Now, you'll see that I have my dashboard up here in front of me. And the first step that we need to follow is that we need to change the WordPress URL within that Divi install. Now, for this tutorial, I'm using some extra domains we have here at Divi Engine. And this is our Divi Body Commerce domain. And we're going to be changing it to divimachine.com instead. So easy to do. We're going to follow these steps right now. So if we go over here for the first step, we're going to go to Settings and General. And now here we can see this divibodycommerce.com right in here for the URL of this website. And we can just go ahead and very easily type in Divi Machine. We'll do the same here, Divi Machine. Now this is the site address and the WordPress address URL. Now, there's another way that you can change that configuration for your site is just by going into your WordPress config.php file. Now, you would need to add a couple of lines that would define that address explicitly, but that's just another way that you can do it for your information if this is more comfortable. I think it's pretty easy to utilize the settings right within WordPress. So with that done, all we need to do is go ahead and click on Save Changes, and it will likely crash the site. See, because now we changed the actual URL of the site. Now what do? Alrighty, so to fix this ugly 404 message that we have in front of us, what we need to do is we need to tell the DNS server where this website lives for divimachine.com. Now, the way that we do this is we head over to our registrar for the domain. Now, you might be using something like Google Domains, maybe you used GoDaddy, but really please don't use GoDaddy. Google Domains is by far the best. Now, we use Google Domains generally for our URLs, but what we do is we utilize Cloudflare as an intermediary for the content delivery, but also for security. Now, what that does is that actually takes over the domain record management. So if I click over here to Cloudflare, we'll see here, you're going to have to log into a Cloudflare account or create one. If you do need specific steps for your specific host, they should have documentation on their site. And usually the links are pretty straightforward to follow to get your domain settings. But we're going to take a look at Cloudflare, and this is our Cloudflare dashboard. We can see up here that I've got the Divi engine account and the Divi machine URL right here. Now, most of them, you will just have to go and log in, select your domain, and then there'll be somewhere where there's DNS records. Now, we can see here that the DNS records are right here in the navigation bar. So we're going to click on that. Now here, we can see there's a record for Divi machine that points to this server right here. Now, what we want to make sure we do is we put the right server in there. This is probably a placeholder server. So when you get there, you might have a record in there already that kind of looks something similar to this. You can just edit that existing record. And if it's not there, you would just create it. Now, we use Cloudways for our websites. So we're going to go over to that hosting account really quick here. And here we can see our server details for this application. So this is our domain change example. And we click on access details. We can see here that the IP for the server is this one right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy that. I'm going to head back to the DNS here. I'm going to edit this and paste that right in there. And then hit save. Now, this is going to be subject to the DNS propagation, of course. So depending on your hosting provider or your registrar, this could be anywhere from a couple of hours to sometimes even a couple of days. We found, though, that utilizing Cloudflare is pretty quickly, almost instantly sometimes. So just go ahead and test your site. And if it's working, fantastic, you've fixed it. And you've changed the DNS records. We can see here that this is not loading yet for Divi machine. An additional step actually that you need to do for some of these is that you need to go and identify the domain that's associated with a particular WordPress install. Now for Cloudways, you just go to domain management. And now what I'll do here is I'm going to add a domain, and we're going to say divimachine.com. We're going to add that, and then we're going to save, take that out, save changes, and I will just give it a second to think. Okay, it's added that domain. Let's check this again really quick. And there you go. Now you see that quickly, we changed our old domain to the new domain already. Now, that doesn't mean that we're finished. There's still a couple, well, actually one really important thing we need to do. And then another thing that we advise you to do when you're changing domain names like this. So we'll cover that in the next step. Alrighty, guys, we've got our site. It's up live and it looks fantastic, right? Nothing can go wrong. Well, that statement's wrong. Something can always go wrong. And what happens a lot of times with these domain changes that you do, and especially when you're using a cheaper host, is the fact that it doesn't update the database effectively from the old URL to the new one. So what does this do down the road? You've got people coming to your site, and maybe images are not loading, or some of the links start getting broken. So it's creating a really bad experience for people that visit your site. And even more, it does affect your SEO when these links are broken. So we want to make sure that we've got everything updated to the new standard, to the new domain. Now, the way that we do this here at Divi Engine, we like to use a tool called Database Search and Replace by these guys at Interconnect IT. Now, we're going to put a link in the description of the video, and you'll see it on the screen right now. But basically what this tool does, it digs into your database and goes ahead and makes those changes for you. It's super efficient. Now, it's better to use this than any of those plugins out there, because a lot of people forget to delete these plugins. They're insecure a lot of the time, and you don't want to open up your website to hackers. Now, when you get to this link, all you need to do is put in your information right here, and don't worry, it doesn't cost anything. They do ask for a donation, and we encourage you guys to make a donation to these guys. But if you don't want to pay, you just select this other option or nothing. And then you just hit the submit. And then what it'll do is it'll send you a link by email. You just click that link and you download the zip package. Now, we're not going to get into too much detail with the installation here because the instructions are right here. But basically all you do is you take that zip package when it's downloaded, you extract the files, and then you go and FTP, or you go on your control panel for your hosting account, and you go to the root of that WordPress install, create some type of obscure folder name that is not easily guessable, and then you copy all those files in that zip archive into that folder. Now, all you need to do after that is you need to browse to the domain and add / and that folder name where you uploaded the files. When you do that, you'll get to a page that looks just like this one. Now, this one's running on my local machine here, but you'll see here, and we'll go through all these steps individually, is that you have a place to search and replace, database details, ask you which tables, and then it says, let's go. And then lastly, of course, delete, and we'll cover that at the end here. Now, here in the first spot, we're looking at the search and replace. We want to replace our old URL with our new URL. So in this case, if we were doing this on my live server, I'd put in Divi body commerce here, and I would add Divi machine over here. We don't worry about the other settings here too much. The next spot is for the database details. Now, these details you might have on hand, maybe not, but you can easily find them also in our WP config file that we discussed earlier. Now, these are defined in here. Here we can see it's asking us for our database name, so that's local. It asks for the DB username, that's root, password, root, and the host is localhost in this case. We can leave the port number empty. And then what you want to do is you want to click that test connection button and make sure it says success, you are connected, because it actually won't let you proceed if you don't have that in there. Now, next up, we're going to tell it what tables do we want to search and replace. We're going to go with all tables here. And then we're not going to mess with these buttons. And then the first thing you want to do is do a test run to make sure that there's no errors that pop up or anything like that. And if that comes back good, we're going to go search and replace. Now, before you click that search and replace button, you're going to go back up here and you're going to make sure that these two URLs are the correct ones. You want to absolutely make sure of this, because you will break your site if you don't do that. Definitely check and make sure of that. And then it should go through fine. Now, what you might also want to do here, just to be extra safe again, is you might want to tell it to go look at https:// old URL, and then the same for the new URL, just to be extra certain that you're covering all the potential, URL combinations that might be out there. You might want to try HTTP also. You might want to throw the www in there. And these are just extra steps you can take to ensure that you're not facing any downtime or any bad experiences for people that visit your site. Super easy to do. Now, the last thing, very important step that you want to do here is you want to click the delete me button to make sure that this script gets deleted off your website, because if it keeps sitting there, it creates a potential security risk for your site, because hackers are always looking for a foot in the door, and if they get it, they will exploit it. So definitely once you've done this, click that delete me button to delete the script. Okay, guys, now remember I mentioned that one part talking about an extra step that's important that you can do, and it relates to SEO for your website. Now, we already talked about making sure that there are no dead links and so forth on your site. Now, extra precaution, what you can do to make sure that you're not losing that old SEO data, because maybe there's external websites that are linking to your site or your awesome blog posts or products that would go to that Divi body commerce / your product or post, which now have become Divi machine / your product, your post. And you want to make sure that those still end up in the right spots. Now, the easiest way to do this is to utilize a WordPress plugin, and there's a bunch of them available. All you need to do is go to the repository and search for 301 redirect, and then just follow the steps in there to make sure that you're getting all of your traffic to the old domain forwarded to the new one. So definitely check that out. But with that, we are done, folks. So thank you so much for sticking with me through this tutorial. I hope that you found it super informative as well as helpful in making sure that you feel confident to change your Divi website domain name when the time comes. With that, this is me, Roby, with the Divi Engine team. We appreciate your comments. Subscribe to our channel, and definitely check out our other tutorials and posts at diviengine.com / resources. I'll catch all of you in the next video.